Hello, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I am Dr. Juan Forfar, and there's quite a few things I'd like to talk about. I have come out the other side of the silence, roughly about a 3.5 week period. I'll have to check back when I made the video saying why I have gone into the silence. But before I tell you about that, let me put something to you. This is something that I'm seeing or witnessing quite a bit, and that is you get a lot of people look into many different things. We call them collectively conspiracy theories, maybe looking into food manufacture and processing, medicines, the pharmacy world, the banking world, you name it. Anything you care to think of that is external to you. I would have thought it was pretty obvious. There is a consistent pattern with all of it. That there are things in place that would seem not to be the best things for you, shall we say. So it's quite amazing how many will then go to a doctor. When I say doctor, there are two. Actually, there are three very distinct types of doctors. It depends, of course, what your definition is of a doctor. Is it someone who's been to medical school and now has a practice and will prescribe things depending on what you say your symptoms are? This is not to say that all doctors are bad, because the second group have sort of come through this and are walking a very precarious path, really, between having their license taken away if they go too far, but also doing things with the best intentions, and good luck to them down that route. Then there is the third type of doctor, which really I can only refer to myself, but there are probably others. There is no practice. There are no external patients, but it does require having an awful lot of patience. Where do we wish to go next with this? A comment I received regarding children and the perception that there are some very depraved things happening, rituals and things. The participants that are inflicting the negative aspects are perceived as being very wealthy and able to buy people off, get others to turn a blind eye and so on. I think it's fair to say that whilst I don't say all these testimonies from those that have been victims are untrue, what I will say is there are a lot of stories. There's also the question of this is all external. I think it's fair to say that there is a certain level of censorship to many things. So it begs the question of why are these stories allowed to come through? If it is with the perception that it's very wealthy people, why are they not just quashing any information from coming out? But let's run with the assumption that it is 100% true, the story that is portrayed. And I have no doubt that there is a lot of truth in it. But ask yourself this: what can you do about it? As an individual physical being, what can you do about it? Do you know the locations of where these alleged things are supposed to happen, for example? Are you going to organise some sort of group to go in and free these children? There is another way of doing this, which is far simpler. Considering that everything else is an external reflection and it is all an inside job, I would suggest what is being alluded to in these stories is it is about saving the inner child inside each and every one of us. It's very much learn to accept what you cannot change. I know that's a very unacceptable topic, but it comes back to that question, what can you really do about it? There is something you can do about it. This is very much ties in with going into the silence and coming out of the silence. But basically, the best way to explain this is to use the way Ken Wheeler has explained about a magnet. What draws two magnets together is not the magnetism. It's not the magnetism that attracts. It is the 0 point, the dielectric. And there's a clue in that word, dielectric. Dielectric, because the thoughts that you create with the conscious mind, the side of the mind that is looking for problems to solve and to go out there and try and fix things, that is causing an interference pattern, a feedback loop. So it is not allowing the dielectric to come together because there is an interference pattern been put in the way, which is something created with the conscious mind. So consider, in this very moment, if you're looking towards the future and there may be something you wish to do, but then up comes the conscious mind with all the objections as to why you cannot do it. It is putting in an interference pattern that is going to stop it coming. There is a word, it is called miracle. It is actually, if you slow it down in the way you say it, there's two meanings to it. There is a miracle, which is the response from the universe, the reflection you will get back when you put out those objections to what you're trying to project and what you're trying to draw towards yourself. But there are also the miracles. That is what miracles are. They are things that just happen in ways that the conscious mind cannot predict, cannot do anything about. But the key to this is to not put out those objections from the conscious mind and allow things to flow. I'm talking from a place of experience with this because that is how the life of this physical being has been going for, well, the 21 or so months that I've been in the Algarve. And further back before that, it was all leading, it's all been building, it's all been proving to oneself what deep down you know to be true. I find myself more and more using the expression, God does not like complainers. And who does, really? Who wants to hear somebody else's complaints about either all their ailments that they feel they have or how things are not going well for them? And it's all negative, negative, negative. What about the positive things? This is something I've very much found since coming out of the silence. I see two very different worlds. It's strange, it doesn't look any different. The physical reality still looks exactly the same. But what does heaven look like, for example? Heaven upon earth. That is as easy to sort of explain as what does gratitude look like? I suppose the only way I can express it is to just say, this is the state that I'm finding myself in every day, one of gratitude. But this is a realm that has contrast, has duality. So whilst on the one hand I feel in heaven, what I actually witness is hell. It is painful to watch. What I mean by that is watching many others falling for the doubts, falling for the fears, creating all these conscious thoughts and going round and round in circles. And they are their own worst enemy. The adversary is adding verse. I can't do this because I lack this, so I can't. I'd like to do that, but there's always an objection. It really is about moving past that and know that the universe has got your back. There's something else that comes out of that. If you know, and this is through feeling, the closest I can define it and quantify it, as it were, it's a language that is partly telepathic, and it is understood or understood in feeling. You just need to hold to that. Whatever you create in the mind, whatever you wish for, you hold true to that. You don't take what the external is reflecting back, because things take time to come into the material from the unseen realm. There is no sort of time scale in the sense that there is with this physical reality. Why is there a time scale here? It is to slow things down so you can appreciate them, so you can see the contrast between what you would deem to be the less pleasant, the more uncomfortable things to witness, and then the contrast from that. You'll appreciate more the things you would deem to be more positive. So it is still, well, it is that mission bell, the Hotel California, as it were. I thought this could be heaven, or I thought this could be hell. Well, there's no thinking required. It is evident. It's a carbon copy of a real reality. It's only, well, the closest it can get to infinity is through recycling, through the 4 stages of birth, growth, maturity, and then decay, and then there's no loss of energy. But to maintain that requires energy. It's an energy in the unseen. So the whole thing behind what involves children, for example, it is like a shortcut. If you think of the chakra system, it is not starting from the place of the sun and the solar plexus and the lunar plexus. It is starting at the root. Ask yourself this, just look at nature. Does a tree or anything from the plant kingdom start from the root, or does it start from the seed, which is the solar plexus? It has to have that fall to the root. By trying to shortcut and starting at the root, as it were, I don't want to conjure up any unpleasant visuals with this, but I feel you'll understand exactly what I'm referring to with this. It is, like everything else, based on a spiritual truth and then literalized into this material reality. What this unseen in this realm does, it's low vibrational, so every time you have those thoughts of I can't, or I'd like to but, all those type of objections that you put up, it is feeding on that. It is not unlike the Matrix film. If you cast your mind back, if you've seen it, to the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory film, sort of one of the final scenes in the office of Willy Wonka, you'll notice it's half a table, half a filing cabinet, half of everything. Because you only get half the story shown to you, and you are required to find that contrast in everything. So this whole thing of fog, for example, that's too dense. What you're looking for is the mist stir eye. That is what you're looking for. What I feel the best state of being, which is called gratitude, you're seeking solace. Excuse me. So, one moment. There is a saying you may hear every now and again, will people say, you can't change things, that's the hand you've been dealt. But I can guarantee you this, most have not even looked at those cards that you have been dealt. I can tell you exactly what the two cards are. One is either a king or a queen, depending on whether you're in a male or female body. The other card is the soul ace. Pay 21's, the coming of age. Or are you going to just not look at those cards, or are you going to take the chance and say twist? Because there's always a twist when you're going into the unknown. But when you recognize the cards that you hold, it's closer than at hand, is either a king or a queen and an ace. You've beaten the banker. The banker in this sense is the energetic harvester of what you would perceive as the negative side. It is a game called pontoon. Pontoon is also a bridge, so it infers there is a crossing. That is what the going into the silence and coming out the side is all about. It's seeing this reality with a whole new perception. So whilst I remain in a state of being of gratitude, I'm also witnessing some very painful scenes that I am not taking part in. It comes with a realization that we are not of this reality. We have come into this reality to experience physicality, to experience time, to experience concepts such as space, abstractions that do not exist outside of this reality. I said earlier that this is a carbon copy, but you can't even explain it in words. Let's go back to that Gospel of John where it says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. You notice it keeps saying was, so it's inferring from that it's already happened. This is just playing out on a loop. Then the Word became flesh. What it doesn't say in that the Word was vocalized, because it puts a disturbance out into the ether. So every time you are vocalizing and saying, I can't, or I'd like to, but, you're creating that feedback loop. You only have to overcome that within yourself. If we look at the Jesus character, it says, I can kill, I can bring back to life, I can harm, and I can heal. What is it that you're killing? It's those thoughts, the word that became flesh that is now putting out or seeking problems. It is very much seek and you shall find. Whatever you look for, you will get a reflection back. If it's a conspiracy theory, for example, you will no doubt find information that validates your position. That's the way this reality works. It is all reflection. So you have in this reality the bringer of light, the Lucifer. And it is in each and every one of us. It's followed the same pattern of the creation of the real reality. Hasn't got it quite right. But as I posed the question on a previous video, how do you address Lucifer without being negative or destructive? Well, the clue is in get thee behind me, Satan. So whilst you have the bringer of light, it is behind you because you're shining out a far greater light, just like is shown as plain as day. Okay, not today, or not at this part of the day. It's like you can't see the stars because there is a greater light in the sky, but that is a reflection. What I can also tell you is Neville Goddard's testimony is absolutely true. What Alan Watts says is absolutely true. What Rudolf Steiner says is absolutely true. There is also another pattern here. If you think of the writer Joseph Benner, you've also got James Brockhurst, you've also got Jason Brashears. What's the common denominator there? It's the initials. But, of course, there is no J, so therefore it is IB. It is a state of being. And it's manifest in many ways. There's a passage also that the sons of God came into the daughters of men. The assumption is always that it's women, it's young women. Not at all. These physical beings are the bride of God, as Neville Goddard explains, regardless of whether you're in a male or a female body, because it makes no difference. You can still be reborn, what is called the birth from above. It is a magical experience, and this is how I have found myself in this state of being of gratitude. Every day is magical. I could say today has not been so exciting because I spent the day cutting up wood, very kindly collected by Sebastian. So I haven't actually had to go out and drag all these dead tree trunks back. All I've had to do now is the chopping up, as it were. And I very much appreciate that. Part of this sense of gratitude as well is being able to have a conversation about the composer Anton Bruckner and his works. He is, after all, God's composer, and I can categorically state, now this is going to highlight the duality of this reality because it depends what you hear from what is said. The message doesn't change, but how you hear it, the angle of your perception that you hear this. When I make this statement, I am the dedicatee of Bruckner's 9th Symphony. He is very much here. This is something Rudolf Steiner explains. If a physical body is not allowed to go through the natural processes of disintegration, then that soul cannot reincarnate. And Bruckner is very much still here. A case in point, the other day, everything's working fine on this mobile device, except when I tried to do a Google search. Then I had the voice, the word said, put the radio on. I got Bruckner's Second Symphony. Last night, I thought I don't really want to watch anything else tonight. So I put the radio on. I get Bruckner's Fourth Symphony. And what a beautiful piece that is. Through the art, Bruckner definitely communicates, and he is still very much here. Many of you may not believe that. It doesn't matter what you believe. It's like saying, go and read 100 books on how to drive a motor vehicle. Are you going to be able to drive the motor vehicle just from getting a concept from reading 100 books? The answer is going to be no. You need to have the experience. You need to know what it feels like. How heavy is the steering? How light is it? What does the brake pedal feel like? How much do I steer when I go into a bend? What does the sensation of speed feel like? Am I able to safely control the vehicle? It's an extension of the physical body after all. And just like motor vehicles, when they get old, things start to break down and fall off. But it doesn't have to be that way. If you believe it, let's say you go to a doctor. Now they could say to you, you're the most despicable person I've ever come across. Get out of my surgery. They could also say, you've got the dreaded C. You're at stage 4 or whatever. They're both opinions. Are you going to take that opinion and import it into yourself and make it your own? It's such a silly thing. But it requires for you to stand in your power, because I can guarantee you all your close family around you will be saying, oh no, you've got to do what the doctor says. No, you do what feels right to you. But it comes down to the question, if you are given an opinion like that, firstly you can ask for a second opinion, which therefore tells you what you've been told by the first doctor is also an opinion. But you don't have to take either of those opinions. You can look inside yourself and say, what is it? Own it. Because it is a thought you've had from your conscious mind that has sat in the body and has been ignored and has allowed to sort of take physical form in a way that is not conducive to long life of a physical body. It can be the most acidic thoughts, so you're basically allowing yourself to be eaten from the inside, and it is all of your own doing, all of your own making from that conscious mind. All you've got to do is just look into the breathing techniques. There is a procedure for doing this, because if you over-oxygenate, that's not good for you either. It's keeping things in balance. So it is basically just breathe in and then do that sniff at the end. Maybe do that 5 times in the morning. If you start getting tingling sensations in your fingers or in your toes, that's the time to start shaking your body about, because you're overloading yourself with oxygen and the body's got to then try and do something with it. But it is no friend of the dreaded C, and it will eliminate it. Like everything else, like learning to drive a car, are you going to just read the books about it, or are you actually going to have lessons and learn from those lessons? and put what you've learnt into practice so it becomes second nature. There is no reason for you to get any of these things if you just stay in balance and you watch every thought, you watch the word, and you learn to distinguish what voice is speaking that word. Is it the luciferic impulse, the conscious mind, the one that's looking for problems to solve? Because Lucifer is very much associated with intellect and externalized language and the written word. But the thing with intellect, it will only take you so far. There comes a point where you have to take that leap of faith, step into the unknown without the fear, not creating a self-imposed hell by creating feedback loops that create an interference which then stop you getting whatever you seek, whatever you desire. And I hope from that you understand that it is something benevolent. It doesn't have to be for self. You can create these thoughts and you can hold true to these things on behalf of others, regardless of what they may say to you in an email or a message or a voicemail or whatever. If you don't like what you're hearing, overwrite what you're hearing. If they're saying, I'm struggling to do this, overwrite it. You're hearing them say, I've sailed through this really well. And stick with that, and it will come that you'll hear that from them. I've experienced that only this week. I can't say any more than that. That would be betraying a trust. As and when that will become public knowledge, I'm sure. So coming out the other side of the silence comes with a 100% feeling that we are individual expressions of the oversoul, of the Supreme Being that has come into this physical reality as the all-seeing, omnipresent. There's a saying that if you can't see God in everything, you can't see God at all. But what does God look like? Go and look in the mirror, basically, is the answer to that one. But you won't recognize it because it requires the Son to tell you. The only way to see the Father is through the Son, but in that, you still don't really. What you see is a reflection, a younger, more golden version of yourself. This is what Neville Goddard speaks about. And I can confirm it is absolutely true. I'm not saying that that is how you will see it in your mind's eye, but when you do see it, when you do experience it, you will know. And the weird thing about it is with the word, there are really no words to describe that feeling of that experience. That being able to now see everything in a completely different way, not complaining about, oh, it's not sunny today, it's cloudy, or all these sort of minor things. But even in that, it's not sunny, but it's also not windy, and it's not ice cold rain either. So see things in the balance with these things. They're not. This is just system programming to always go with that conscious perceiving problems to solve side. It's like a super sleuth, as it were. But it's like if you look into any conspiracy theory, what you would call, or what are called rabbit holes. Just answer this. Has anybody ever got to the bottom of one of these rabbit holes? As I've said before, there is only one rabbit hole, as it were, that you can get to the bottom of. It is like the eye of a needle, because this reality is completely the opposite way round, and that Christ consciousness will pass through that needle with no problem at all, although it is far greater. In this reality where things are flipped, it seems like the most minute thing ever. But it's the same with that display of that mushroom cloud like Hiroshima. Everybody's wowed by the external, the loss of energy, which, isn't it strange how it looks like a brain? But that's not where the power resides. It is in the dielectric. It is in the intrinsic side of it. That is also within you. Yes, we are magnetic beings, but it is the dielectric that is the miracle. It can be the miracle, or it can be the mirror cause. It's a reflection of what you put out is now coming back. And if there's no physicality involved as such, like a Bruckner symphony, the day before, a very similar thing happened. I was thinking of the three most well-known Scandinavian composers, Edvard Grieg for Norway, Wilhelm Stenhammar for Sweden, and Jean Sibelius for Finland. I've come back into the room, put the radio on, I've got the piano concerto by Grieg playing, and very nice too. Totally interactive. This is something True Love Channel talks about. I seriously recommend going and listening to what she shows. The world is a stage. We're all basically actors. In some ways, you could say I'm partly playing the part of Enoch, because now in this state of being in gratitude, I'm rather taken with it. And does it not say that Enoch was taken? Really, there's nothing else to say. It's, as Neville Goddard found out, it is just to preach the word, to help others find it for themselves, to experience it so they know for themselves. So it's a double-edged sword, because if there are sufficient that can do that, my purpose here is over. There is no need for me to stay. Now, here we can have this material, physical sort of, oh no, don't go, don't die, and all this. There is no death. The physical body is part of this physical reality. Part of the nature of that physical reality is it is all subject to time. It goes through a cycle. That can't be stopped. That is a fact that you can see all around you and you can experience. If you've had pets, unfortunately, they have very short lives, so you will experience loss. But again, look for the contrast. Consider if it's what is described as an untimely death, particularly with a dog or a cat, it is because they are spiritual guardians and they basically sacrifice themselves to jolt you on your timeline. If you're not hearing the call from spirit, as it were, it will drop a mountain on you. It can seem quite cruel. Some of the testimonies that I've had about this, on the day that you're going to move, you break your ankle. It's because the universe wants to keep you there, because there is a reason that you can't see. There is also the unknown of what may happen, which may not be so good if you do happen to move, so it is a form of protection. So all these things, don't see them just purely in the negative. Look for the contrast, because it is a realm of duality. There is I've seen this on YouTube. Now, it could be the real presidential candidates or president at the time. It could have been a look-alike actor. It could be entirely CGI. That doesn't matter. None of that matters. That is immaterial, although it's in the material world. But it's the message that was said as much as what wasn't said. And it goes along the lines of, I'm not a politician, I'm a businessman. I make deals. That's what I do. It begs the question, and it wasn't asked, was, well, who are the deals with? And who benefits from these deals? And equally, who is going to lose out from these deals? Those questions for some reason don't get answered. But it follows the same pattern. The Word was made flesh, but it doesn't say the Word was vocalized outward. But consider that the Word, are you listening to the Word? Have you looked at that hand and seen that you have got 21? Or you can really go for it and go for the 5-card trick. That I would recommend. But how far are you prepared to go with any of this? Let's take the archaic mantra, break free or die trying. Are you really, seriously going to see that through? Are you going to fully embrace that? But don't create those problems with the mind. Just vision the future. Remember the future, as Neville Goddard says. And then you will see a mirror call rather than a mirror cowl. So I hope that has helped give you a better perception on things, or shown you a way to find a better perception on things, to realize that you are a king and a queen, or a queen. You have a soul ace that you can play. You can cross that bridge. You can come out the other side in a state of being of gratitude, which comes with that contrast of seeing the hell that others are putting themselves through when they don't actually have to do that at all. That's the painful part. But you're not importing that. You're having empathy, and you're trying to help them by just being. If they are open, they will pick up on the energy in the same way that those that have crossed that bridge, as it were, will fully grasp what I'm saying here. Whereas many of you will be thinking, what's he on about, birth from above? Well, you can read the story in the Gospel of John. But don't take it as a literal physical story. It's all metaphors. But it is referring to the birth from above, which takes place up here in the mind. It's nothing to do with the external world whatsoever. It is entirely possible for all of you to do this. That's the child you're also protecting most. It's your inner child. You get that one right, you stop feeding the energy which is being harvested. You're no longer allowing your light to escape. Now you can shine out brighter because you've not got any light escaping. You've overcome the light of the light bringer by outshining it. Anyway, this is, well, we're coming up to 44 minutes again. Not deliberate, it's just the way these things work. But the numbers have codes, but that's a whole other story. So as always, unconditional love to you all.